Cool.
I'll let you do the intro and then we'll turn it over to Roger, I guess.
No, you got this. I'm going to bow out now. This will be, we'll just edit this front part out. I'll see you guys later, I hope.
Right,
Okay,
thanks,
Tom. Hope so. Okay. Well, I think everybody knows Roger Rossi. So, Roger, we're recording. Why don't you take it away and share with us what you got?
Okay. Well, gentlemen, as I got going on this adventure, one of the things I needed for my layout was USMRR standard boxcars. Of course, we all know BTS has a beautiful product, and that's great. But the engines that I wanted to run were effectively the OO Riverrossi. So they're a little large. And quite frankly, the BTS product looks way too small while next to it. So EC suggested that the Mantua car is a good match, and it is. Looks great. And so I began to figure out how I could turn the Mantua car into a radial roof USMRR standard boxcar, along with new doors. So I began to pursue that project. So let me go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint here. If there are any questions initially, I'll be more than happy to field those. DC, are we seeing it? No, we got to share the screen first, DC.
Oh, it's not recording, shares.
See if that works. Is that working?
Yep, there you go.
Excellent. Very good. So that's what I decided to go after. And of course, you have the standard Mantua. Here, let me get this out of the way. Here, I'm going to shut this down for a moment for me, so it's out of the way. Good. You've got the standard Mantua car. I wanted to make sure we had a period picture of what I was shooting for. I call this the Z frame of the Mantua door, and it's really a full framing. And so I wanted that look. And what else do we have here? Anything that I can distinguish immediately right away? Okay, and you see these small details that are on the side, these corner braces. All of this is not located on your standard car. Let's see if I can get this out of the way. Full view. There we go. Okay. I can remember now how to do it that way. There we go. So why convert the Mantua boxcar? Is it good enough? Well, no. And I gave that explanation. I was looking for that conical, that radial roof right here. And the ladders are okay. Even the brake stand, or whatever they would call that, is okay. But I definitely needed that radial roof. And so you can tell that peaked roof right there. And then we've got the basic look here. For these cars, I chose to leave that window on there. You could take it off. It's a lot of fun. So I chose not to do that this round. Even better view of the radial roof and that door framing there. So I called it sort of an H frame, not a Z frame. Pretty sure we're all basically familiar with that. If you need me to slow down, just let me know. So the details, these corner braces, no corner braces. You got a handrail there. Handrail is horizontal here, vertical there. Whether that changed or no, on most of the pictures that I'm seeing, it's generally vertical. And frankly, haven't found a horizontal picture of one. This bracing, which you cannot see due to this gentleman here, is sort of there. So I left that on there. Whoops, went back. Apparently. Oh, the opposite side. You also have this hand wheel, which placed along the wall here, which there are several period photographs with the brake wheel here. I said happily the ladders can be modified. In fact, I don't know if I show it later, but since the conical roof lowers this, the radial roof, when I cut this conical, the peaked roof off, lowers the general profile. These holes up here basically go right underneath the slight overhang of the roof. You can, all you have to do is pull these out, bend them straight, and they look and stay pretty fine. Let's see. Right, here we go. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, got it. So I begin by dismantling the car. I take off the doors, wall and pole brake wheels, and the floor. I cut the roof off with a thin bladed model saw. Choose the one you want to use. I think I use a combination of X-Acto and something else. I try to cut it right along the line of the roof. There's still a little cut off. The great thing is I almost didn't have a single problem cutting off the roofs. I did a little too much eating into the end paneling on a couple of occasions, but once you sand down the peaked portion of the roof and turn it into a radial portion, you're in good shape. You start on one side, go to the middle. I don't know if yeah, there we go. There, I picked the X-Acto 236. It's a good thin blade, so you're not chewing up too much plastic material. Then I went to the other side. I know I'm using two different cars. Sorry about that, but I did go to the other side. I started at the corner like I did this side and brought it into the peak. So, right, cut the center peak from the outside and stop. Go to the other side. Whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, let's just move on because basically I described that. I sanded or filed down depending upon what was working best. Yep, I showed these pictures and took in a close picture for a reason here. Note how none of my radial curvatures came out correct or came out perfect. I thought that initially I thought that was going to be a problem. Once I got the roofs on, really wasn't much of a problem. Maybe that means I'm not a master modeler. That's fine. It looks good to me. And when you step 3 feet away from it, you're going to have a hard time seeing those details. But hey, if you need that detail, then by all means, please file it perfectly. Go for it. Let's see, siding window detail if you dare, right? Same thing with a wall wheel chain. Yeah, you can cut off this wall wheel chain covering and the chain and the wall wheel, shall we call it aperture, to receive the brake wheel if you want. That's another good thing. There's no doubt about it. It makes it more difficult, adds more time, but hey, makes it more prototypical. Okay. So as you can tell, perfect cuts and filing not achieved. I say don't worry about it. Slight overhang of the roof will cover it. And for the most part, it really does. So you'll putty with your your favorite filler and go from there. And I gave you these pictures here. Here, let's see if I can get there. It is. Just to show that none of them are perfect. Almost none of them are the same as well. It's just the way it went. And you'll see the results later. Okay. Now the roofs are off. It's time to remove all unnecessary details that you choose to remove. Use your favorite hobby knife, your filing tool, or sandpaper to remove the metal corner braces and the hand grabs, or whatever you want to call them. Use any grooving tool to re-groove the car wall planking to reestablish that detail. That one I needed. Believe it or not, I just used a roofing nail, put the point in there, and reestablish the groove so that it would more or less match. And it, let's see, I'm not sure if I have it done in these pictures. Yeah, it is. That yellow, the yellow plastic makes it look like it's level. But if I put some sort of darkening agent in there, you would see that the indentions had been made again. Are there any questions so far? Good. Now, the main body of the car is ready. Now it's time to fabricate the doors. Let me get that out of the way. This feature is a critical step to providing a more prototypical look to the model. Note the door planking is thinner. Look at this planking here on the door. I could not tell you the distance. Pardon me, I could not tell you the width of that planking, but when you look at the side of the car, it's obviously wider planking on the side of the car than it is on the door. So that presented a problem. So since it's thinner, I used car siding end scale 3 1/4 inch spacing for the door planking. I used it in HO. Yeah, I would have used it for HO for the siding of the car if I was fabricating the complete car. And for the door, I use the end scale door planking, and it looks great. Then, using the original Mantua door, I traced around it to create a template that will fit into the existing door rails, because I wanted to use the existing door rails. I wanted these doors to open and close, unlike the BTS product. So remember, the outside framing is not the same size as the door and must fit into the side rails to look right and to continue to open and close. So you'll take note that I printed a blank door that was the exact size as the original Mantua door. And then I printed out the door framing on both on cardstock. So, well, actually the framing on cardstock, this I used for the end scale 3 1/4 inch planking plastic sheeting. And this I put in cardstock. BTS put it in cardstock. I could do it in cardstock too. And so this fits onto this and leaves the upper and lower portions open to slide into the original Mantua rails. So once you cut these out, using the printed frames on the cardstock, carefully cut out the frames with your favorite cutting tool. Frankly, I used a small pair of scissors to cut out the framing. In fact, what I did was I would cut straight through here and then cut this out. I probably cut straight through up there and cut this out. And even though there's a cut there, once you glue it back down, you're not going to notice it, especially after you paint over it. So it doesn't matter how you do your cutting. If you want to get an X-Acto knife in there and try to make sure you get this out perfectly, sure, go ahead. If you're good at that, go for it. I have up here a plain piece of very thin, I'm sorry, DC, what do you call this plastic stuff? It's eluding me right now.
The evergreen styrene?
Thank you, styrene, the evergreen styrene. A very thin piece of evergreen styrene. I forgot which size I used. I think I showed it later. Glued onto this planking, glued onto this, and then the framing glued on to the planking. That gave a thick enough door to get back into the Mantua car, because it's about this glued onto this is almost the same thickness as a Mantua door. And when you paint it, it unfortunately gets a little thicker. Right, good. All right, let's move on here. Are there any questions so far? All right, good. So I cut a bunch of them out and then took this, begin to assemble the doors first using your favorite glue. I used CA. I glued the door planking to the matching door piece to give enough thickness so the door would slide decently when placed back onto the car. Cutting the side doors must be done carefully because it will be seen. And specifically, what I'm talking about are these two sides. The top parts, since it's going under the railing, don't worry about it too much. But the sides, you want to cut those as straight as possible because it's seen. Top and bottom going to the rails will not be seen. Decent cutting helps the door move smoothly. Okay, now this is a fully constructed door, a couple of them here. Here's the fully constructed door next to the original Mantua door. Based upon what I figured, the framing is the center frame is a little bit higher than the Mantua door. So when I did my drawing, I made sure it fit in there. And yeah, you got it. The framing right there is a little larger than the side of the door. The good thing is that's really not seen because the upper and lower sections of the door are under the railing. So you really don't notice it. Okay, with the doors done, we need to fabricate the roof. This can be done one or two ways with plain or grooved styrene. I chose plain because I was under the false impression that all tinned roofs were manufactured the same way with 13 sheets of tin laterally laid on top of the roof from side to side. Well, all three of these pictures will tell you I was wrong. They were laid laterally. This one right here is laid laterally. Up and you can see the lines right there. Or is that, yeah, that's laterally. And these are laid longitudinally. Okay. And any other details, any other cars you run into, it's all going to be the same. I counted about 5 cars. No, first of all, I looked at the BTS product, and they had 13 sheets of tin laid across the roof. So I did 13, but then I started looking closely at the pictures and said, screw that. In the future, I'm buying grooved styrene, and I'll cut the roofs, and then I'm done. It will just cut out a major step and look great. Of course, I chose to use the plain styrene to make the grooves. This is what I did. Save yourself the trouble and purchase the grooved styrene of different widths, if available. But nonetheless, measuring the Mantua car body, I made a roof template that slightly hangs over the sides and ends of the cars. I used mainly a roof nail to make the grooves. And, I would just put some sort of a ruler over them. And then I scraped or gently sanded the groove. After I scraped grooves in, you get a little bit debris on there. Just sort of either sand that off or use your fingernail and scrape it off. And you got a smooth roof. After preparing the roofs and filling the car sides and ends even, filing the car sides and ends even, I wanted to glue them on without any of the Carlin curved radial roof cross beams to support the roof. Well, unfortunately, I learned that styrene did not keep its form across the length of the car and sagged or sunk around the door badly. So I fabricated some radial curved Carlin supports after making yet another template for myself. Okay. And then I cut a bunch of those out. The one thing I may suggest also, if you want to get a thin piece of balsa wood or basswood and do the grooves in that might work. But then it will have that wooded look, that sort of wood look, which was my concern. I wanted the tin look, so I stuck with the styrene. All right. So I cut out a bunch of radial curved Carlin supports and glued them inside the car on both sides of the door. I tried to make the roof supports even, but I'm almost positive not a single one was the same size. I'm just telling you straight. I cut and sanded them so that they would fit snugly between the two sides of the car before gluing. It worked well, in my sorry opinion. And if I glued them too high above the sides of the car that I'd filed down, then all I did was file them down some more until they were perfectly even. The Carlin crossbeams were perfectly even with the sides of the door, or whatever you want to say, the top of the sides of the car. And then I went on here. All right. Once the Carlins were dry, I was ready to glue on the roofs. I placed the modeling glue all the way around the car and on each Carlin support. I positioned the roof so that there was a little hanging over either side and both ends, and taped it down to dry. And the taping down is critical in order to get the curvature you're looking for. I suggest modeling glue, and there's a reason why I suggest that. It's gonna, well, maybe because it's only my modeling skill, which I'm fine with. I needed time to position the roof absolutely correctly, or as best I could. And CA glue, I felt, was going to dry too quickly. So I decided to use modeling glue. So you have the time to readjust the, the roof positioning. I used 1.5 inch to 2 inch masking tape to secure it evenly across the sides of the car. This also bends the styrene to the curvature of the desired radial look. File or sand any excess roofing to fit. So if the roof is too far out either side, sand it down. Don't worry about it. Now, here's a side view and an under view so you can see how it looks after it is glued. Notice the excessive glue near the ladder to the left. Don't worry about it. You have a radial roof. Who cares? Nobody's going to see that. Nobody's going to see that. And after you close up the car, anybody tries to disassemble your car to catch you over gluing your roof on, throw them out of your railroad. You know what I'm saying? There you go. Now, what do we got here? All right. Now, I primed them all black for 2 reasons. 1, to hide all the excessive glue, and 2, to keep it dark in there where I will never see any of my other inner mistakes. They are Mantua plastic after all, and do not come with master modeler interiors. Also, I wanted the lack of detail underneath the car to be hidden. And when you darken it, that basically does the job. Now, I did my best to avoid fooling around with underneath the car, but failed completely. I simply could not ignore the visible support beams, which for some reason I'm not seeing very clear. There they are, right here. The visible support beams underneath the doors. There are more support beams over here, but not under every car. So I thought this one was kind of an anomaly, but these 2 support beams right here are pretty standard. I'm looking here. No. I see them. Yeah. I'm sorry. The support beams are down here. My apologies. So, I fabricated some with appropriately purchased, for appropriate size, of course, purchased balsa wood. I'll probably try basswood next time. Balsa wood doesn't cut as well as I had hoped. But nonetheless, I ended up cutting them too long, filing them down so they would fit the way I wanted them to. So I fabricated some with appropriate size, purchased balsa wood. I cut the beams to the exact width of the outside of the sides of the car, because they're exposed out from the sides of the car there. So they need a little room, either side of the car, and glued them underneath the support wiring. I did not change the Mantua support wiring. I left it there. It's a modeler's choice. I think there is sort of a attached stanchion here, not a stanchion, but something that secures the under wiring or beam or whatever that is to the wood. Chose not to worry about it personally, because once again, it's going to be underneath there, and I'm not going to worry about that. Yep, too much CA glue again, as you can tell. Now, naturally turned out just fine with minimal effort. This took almost no time at all to get done. And when you fit the outer boxcar portion back over these, it lines up right with the beam there. Are there any questions so far? Please feel free. Here we go. Let me see if I can get my cursor back. Oh, there we go. Okay. Then I decided to modify one of the Mantua stock cars because I was begging for more trouble. I was looking at pictures like panes of wood on the side of the car being removed. You can see the framing underneath. I'm assuming that's framing underneath, especially since it looks like it's on the inside of the paneling of the car there. I saw these other different cars. This picture is in Alexandria. I believe these pictures are in Chattanooga or parts west. And so different types of cars, different windowing, different deconstruction, you name it, different doors even. So I grabbed one of the Mantua stock cars since it already had windows and cut and sanded them out. Since the Mantua plastic is thick, this was not easy, even with the appropriate Dremel bit. But nonetheless, the results were good enough, and I moved forward by cutting approximately size 3 1/4 inch HO scale car siding styrene to fill in the cutout window areas. I wanted to refill those to see what that would look like, as if it was a repair done out in the field. Right. If I had chosen to, I could have made more irregular holes in the side to show what troops actually did to the freight car stock during the war. So there's a whole bunch of options you can pursue. Now, then I cut some of the styrene 3 1/4 inch planking, filled in the former vent windows. Came out fine, could have been better. I'll be honest with you, could have been better, but this was as adventurous an effort as I made, and I call it a probable repair scenario. And no, the styrene paneling is not the exact same width as the Mantua paneling, unfortunately. Oh well. The USMR repairmen were using alternative materials that day. Now, with the basic conversion made and the cars reconstructed, I then primed them with the Viejo black primer spray after rubbing alcohol bath with a toothbrush to remove whatever debris remained. And that was critical because there's a lot of sanding going on, a lot of dust going on. And you got to make sure that you clean them up before you prime them. Now, working with our very own American Civil War Railroad member, Eric Cox from Panamint at Shapeways, he sent me his excellent USMRR and wood beam trucks. And we can get into that a little bit later. Right now, what you're looking at is a comparison between the Shapeway product and the resin product that Eric made for me personally, because he can do them, and he could do them for cheaper. Okay, so next time you're thinking about getting his USMR trucks or any of his trucks or any of his products, contact Eric first. You'll have to do it initially through Shapeways or contact him through the site here and talk to him. And he was frankly fantastic to work with, just the best. Now, the details on his resin trucks are a little off on the bottom. I don't know what happened to my cursor. There it is. The details are a little off on the resin ones. Let me see here. Yeah, there's the bottom of the Shapeway product. Little more detailed. But I'm telling you guys, in my mind, I'll let DC speak for himself. He bought some of these. He has some of these from Eric. It don't matter. It really looks good. DC, feel free to chime in on that one.
Oh, they do look good. I bought a whole bunch of them from Eric. Yeah. Once you get the car done and on the track, no one except the rivet counter will know for sure.
That's correct. So I chose this time to only use the USMRR trucks. He does have other trucks. You can look them up. Well, you can't look them up on Shapeways, but contact him. DC had kindly informed us undergrads a while back that the brakes were usually not installed onto one of the trucks in the car. So I cut off a set of brakes from one truck to provide that prototypical element to the car.
Could I just chime in now?
Please.
Eric does now offer them both with and without brakes.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, when I turned in my final order, he sent me half and half. So that will save you having to deal with this. So just definitely order them without, you know, the amount you need without the brakes, the amount you need with the brakes. So let's install the trucks using the existing screws and plastic truck clips. The two different Mantua truck to floor connectors. No go. I intend to sell off my Mantua trucks on eBay, recoup some of the cost for purchasing the trucks from Panamint, but wanting to permanently remove the metal weight plate from the older version of the car, the metal screws, you find out that the screws were manufactured to attach to the metal plate and turn smoothly through the plastic floor. Anybody who is familiar with the cars know what I'm talking about. The newer car has an even larger hole, the plastic clip that attaches the truck to the floor. What do you do? So, send up a flare for help. Since DC and Tom had installed Panamint trucks, I texted them for help. DC suggests using properly sized cut styrene tubing to fill in the old screw floor opening and the plastic clip floor opening. That sounded doable, but I still ran into specific problems with each style of floor opening. After looking at several sizes of tubing, I finally settled on 1/8 inch tubing because its shaft was a fit for the original Mantua metal screw, and or I could purchase screws to fit the tubing. I then purchased 2 by 56 inch by 1/4 inch screws to fit the tubing and be long enough to securely stay in the new fabricated shaft. Its outside diameter led to the other solutions. Are we okay here? Are there any questions with this? Okay. I'm moving along at a clip because I know how long this thing is, and I'm trying to keep it within the reasonable time limit here. Now, as you can easily tell, the existing attachment holes were different sizes. Styrene tubing outer diameter forced me to drill the older metal screw shaft wider, and I ended up adding a plastic washer to that like object to the newer plastic clip hole to provide more stability when I glued the cut styrene shaft into the hole. If anybody has a solution for this, I'd certainly love to hear it. Now, drilling a larger hole in the older model was simple enough, but finding the plastic washer-like object to fill in the wider hole was an issue. I found something that I do not know the name of from my uncle's train parts supply that I had acquired, and it fit perfectly into the floor hole. These are the floor holes with the plastic clips. So this plastic disc object fit perfectly into that. And I glued the washer object in, placed a tube inside the hole, got a piece off, use the same technique for the older model, for the newly widened hole, forget the screws in it, worked just fine. Then I glued the newly cut tubing shafts into the different floorings of the newer cars. You can see the differences. This is the one I had to drill out to get the 1/8 inch shaft in. This is the one where I put the washer object in. There's how Eric delivered his trucks to me. Now, time to attach the trucks now. No, again. I placed the 2 trucks down on my workbench and placed an unmodified undercarriage on the trucks, and look at the results. Now, look at the picture. This is from the gentleman who did the 1968 article in Model Railroader magazine about USMRR freight cars. And you can tell that the trucks are way too far away from the body of the car. And let's face it, the Mantua car is already too tall. And I achieved the radial roof and lowered the ceiling, but now the bottom of the car was lifting up the car. And Eric was offering to modify the trucks and all that number. And I guess that was a nice idea, but I kind of looked the Mantua over a little bit and felt like modifying the lower portion of the 2 different types of cars was the better option for me. So this is what I did. After consulting DC again, he suggested creating a jig so that when you sand down the shaft area, you do not take off too much of the material from the undercarriage. He had made one of brass, and I know why he did it. He wanted to make sure that A, it lasted, B, it was thin enough to take it almost right down to the undercarriage. DC, if you want to add anything, do so.
No, I just made mine of brass because I figured I was going to make a lot of cars. Now I do BTS cars instead.
Right, and you wanted it to last.
Yes,
Makes sense.
It has.
Yeah, well, I was in a hurry. I grabbed some cardstock, used a standard single hole punch. And the handheld hole punch, and created the jig. Believe it or not, that standard hole punch, the single hand one, was the perfect size. As luck would have it. Unbelievable. Yeah, by some miracle. And for both undercarriage designs. So I had to cut out 2 inserts for one of the newer undercarriage designs. Looking at the picture to the right, first undercarriage, the one closest, is the older model. I had to sand it down to its shaft section. Here, let me get, I call the, to its shaft section right here. I think, yeah, right to the top of the triangular support-like objects here, and this cross beam. Send it down to its shaft section to the top of the triangular supports to make it level with the newer model. The top undercarriage, that only needed to be sanded down to the larger flat round section a little above its triangular support. So once again, here's the newer one. Here's those triangular supports in the shaft. I had to sand it down to there. I had the appropriate Dremel tool to do it. Took almost no time at all. Now, I grabbed my Dremel. I armed it with what I thought was an appropriate sanding bit to grind down the plastic quickly, but levelly. You want to do it levelly because you want the flat upper portion of the truck to turn smoothly. You don't want it to angle. You don't want to make it the car lean one way or another for the installation of the trucks, and went to work. There's it sand down there and what it looks like right down to these side triangular supports close to or right on top of the beam. There they are once again, showing either side. Okay, so apparently it didn't go down to the beams. It went just to the supports. So let me modify that. So you can see what it looks like on the undercarriage after leveling the two shaft sections. So right where the supports meet with the round part, right at the top of those supports is where you want to sand it down to, not to the cross beam. My apologies. Then when you put them back on, look how close they are to the car itself. And it's a touchdown. And then I put them, yeah, you can see them from the front here. Made sure they sat levelly fore and aft so that the car would sit on their level. And then when you look at these two, here's the floor modified. Here's where it's not modified. You can tell by the beam, it's much lower than this one. So I now have a radial roof, and I have a car, an entire car that sits lower, where it used to be too tall. It's at least closer now. I painted the body a roof brown from Badger. And Badger is a little lighter than the Viejo roof brown. But there's a definite difference between the two colors, shade-wise. And the roof combination of a Viejo plain silver, and weathered it with I weathered only the roofs with the Viejo sky gray. I decaled them with microscale USMRR freight and passenger car decals. That was a joy getting these correct numbers. These are all prototypical numbers from photographs. From Alexandria, I believe I took photographs from. Now, preparing the trucks was relatively straightforward. DC had mentioned that on cars that had the brakes, usually one truck. Once again, I've already said that. So I got that all done. All right, apparently, okay, for the trucks, I used the darker Viejo product. You know, reassembled the 5 cars into a presentable state of being here. I'm sorry that the pictures aren't that great. Let's see if I did better round 2 over here. There we go. It's a little better. Good close-in picture. These are the original frames. There's that door framing. These are the fabricated doors. I started to laugh at myself. Look at the warpage on the roof here. Well, go ahead and do some, go ahead and look at the pictures. And if you find a perfectly straight roof on a USMRR car, send that picture to me, okay? I'd like to see it. Most of my research, I think I found one perfectly straight roof. So I was pleased. Oh, here's where I sanded out the detail. Remember I told you I used the nail to reestablish the grooving. No, it's not perfect, but it looks a whole lot better than it did before I did the grooving. I can tell you that. But, you know, I'm willing to show every fault in these models. When I sit back on my railroad and they're going by me, I'm going to have a real hard time remembering that detail. And so, and the effect once they're all on the track together is lovely. Roof and undercarriage views. That all goes nicely together. I ended up replacing these with some, there they are right there, nickel plated screws. I guess you could paint over those if you want to. There's the radial roof. This was the first car I grabbed. I didn't bother looking to see if this was perfect for these pictures. I just grabbed one. And once again, you know, go ahead. Remove this. Remove the window. Reestablish the grooves. Knock yourself out. I didn't start turning down the bottom of the ladders until later. So I don't have any of those pictures. The car's pictured with that done. And then I decided to place my car right up against a prototypical picture. You can see the warpage right here, right over the door railing area. But, you know, it does the job, gentlemen. And feel free to disagree. I have no problem with that. But I'm pleased with it. And in the end, that's what counts, you know. Be pleased with what you're able to do and enjoy. Some more pictures, some more prototypical pictures. Trying to give you, you know, a good look at. They match up pretty good. Not perfect. Match up good. Oops. Yeah, sorry about that picture. I tried to get this squared away, and for some reason I couldn't get it turned. Now, I decided to go after a catwalk. So, photograph versus the rebuilt model. This time I added the catwalk using an appropriate width basswood and some thinly cut balsa wood. I created a catwalk to fit the warped roof. And the balsa wood are those very thin supports underneath the catwalk. And got a typical picture. Fine. And later on, I used India ink to weather, age, whatever you want to call it, the beam or crosswalk, excuse me, and I was very pleased with it. Now, period photograph versus the rebuild again. This time I added floorboarding to the interior, cutting in an appropriate width, pre-grooved basswood, and some India ink again. And I had a nicely weathered flooring designed to fit into the Mantua car. These cuts right here, the wiring underneath the car that I left there, I cut these so that would fit around the wiring outcropping that's on the interior. And then I cut a piece the size that would fit in. This would fit on this side, this would fit on that side. And I cut a centerpiece, fit it right in there, you know, and it looked great. And I know I talked earlier about not having interior details. Couldn't help myself again. And then fused with the Riverrossi. And, you know, I was just up with and saw Tom's layout Tom has a huge mixture. He has BTS mixed in with Mantua. And, you know, if you've got a lot of Mantua cars and you want to use them. Convert a radial roof if you want that. But with the Riverrossi product, it really gives a better fit in size. I do not have a BTS car here to show you the difference. So I apologize for that. But if you own a BTS car, it's like a quarter of an inch shorter, and maybe that same length shorter than the width, or a quarter inch shorter of the width and the height. And that's a ballpark. And then I put all my instructions down. Does anybody have any questions before I stop sharing the screen? Okay.
Thank you, Roger.
Absolutely.
Certainly, there's got to be some questions.
Yeah, feel free, guys. The good, you know, like Joel up there, Joel is never going to have to worry about converting a radial roof. They make them. They make them in N scale. So, you know.
And you can get them from Eric Cox's shop, I believe, too, can't you?
Yes, you can buy those.
Yeah, on the Mac, you can do hold on the shift bar. I don't know what you can on this one. Huh?
Yeah.
iPad Pro. Yeah, that's what this is. Huh? That's what this is. Big iPad Pro. Yeah.
Paul, did you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Oh, we were having a sidebar.
We were having a sidebar.
Okay. Right. I wasn't sure there.
We have the advantage that the guy from Microtrains that was setting up the line called Bernie Kopinski.
Oh, yeah.
And got advice and guidance.
Yeah, Bernie was still in diapers when Mantua cars were being made.
Yes.
You
notice here, I'm wearing one of Bernie's shirts right now. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the U.S. Military Railroad right there with my Air Force Blue American Civil War Railroad Historical Society badge on.
Yeah. Oh, and I thought that was Union Blue.
Yeah,
it looks good, Joel. Looks real good.
It does.
But yeah, and yes, for that. However, in N-scale, we have a guy, Kaloon, on Shapeways that will make the peak roof you can put on the Microtrains cars if you want to model one of the 2 or 3 angle roof ones.
Right. And DC, you were saying Eric's has the radial roof for sale, or he has a car with a radial roof for sale?
He sells a car body, does he not, Joel, with a radial roof in N-scale?
Yes, it's the B&O cars.
The B&O cars.
Yeah, in fact, that's the one that you were kind of looking at in the Alexandria rail yard. Now, that one may have been looking at the number and realizing that those shots were made in 1864 when Andrew Russell went up when they completed the roof over the roundhouse and the cupola, and Russell went up and shot a series of panoramic shots around the rail yards. So those are actually sometime in '64 after the roof had been finished. That's
right.
Which, one of those things. Alexandria is a wonderful town. They have a historical office, and every time you build something, they go out, dig it up, and have an archaeological report that's filed at the city. And you can go in and pull those things out, and it gives you the history of like the U.S. military rail yard over years. And that was suddenly they said, and this shot had to be made right after because he couldn't have gotten up to do that shot until they finished the roof. because the roundhouse, all the shots with the roof and the cupola are 64 later. That's after it was finished. And they took pictures of it after they finished it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And
that's good to know. I'm glad to hear that, because that will help me date every picture I look at.
Yeah. And Russell, of course, was one of the Union Pacific photographers later. He's the first official U.S. military photographer, Captain Andrew Russell. And then afterwards, he kept that business going. And you can tell, like at the Huntington Library is a book of Civil War pictures he sent to his boss.
California, right?
Yes. The Huntington has a lot of his photos and a few that are not in the archives. And I just found Ohio State has some photos I have never seen. So I've got to get, because the online copies are low resolution. So I got to go to the library to see the high res.
The Huntington has an extremely important one from Manassas that I found there when I went there. So I was really glad to find that one.
Yeah. And those were the plates, I think, probably that Russell sent to his boss.
Okay.
Because you put together a book, and that's what they took apart and are in the archives.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you told us that one.
I keep trying to date things now. After about 10 years, you start looking at stuff, and you suddenly can relate it to something else that you saw or read. And then you start figuring out the bigger picture. For anybody who's interested, I'll be in October. I hope to be in Alexandria with my corporate librarian wife, and we're going to go to the archives and do another deep dive.
Okay.
Into the records there.
Well, I'm not turning green with envy on that one, but yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I would like to interject one thing. If you're rich, our BARM models on Shapeways does offer a Harlan and Hollingsworth built 3D print of a boxcar with the arch roof. I think they're about $40 or so plus shipping a piece. No trucks included. So we'll work with the Mantuas kind of.
It becomes really attractive in a quick hurry. Yeah.
I did have a question, Roger. Are you have any plans to put in handrails to grab irons?
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah, I've got I'm praying the 18-inch grab irons are the correct size. I mean, that's looking at the pictures, I thought that can't be 2 feet.
No, the 18-inch are the ones I've used.
Yeah, I bought a bushel load of them. Yeah, I'd like to repopulate the roof and the side.
That's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You can also get Grant Line, Tichy Train, San Juan models, NHO scale nut bolt washer castings that are appropriately sized. So you drill your 2 holes in, your grab iron goes in, you drill a hole on either end of it, and you can use your tester cement and drop in the nut bolt washer castings, and the cement allows you to kind of fiddle with them so that they're perfectly in line with the grab iron.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and it's one of those little details you can see. I'm not that worried underneath cars, details I can't see anymore.
Yeah, I just, once you put the car down on the track and it starts rolling, you're gonna have a hard time seeing that. So, right. But, if you're doing some sort of a master modeler thing where you're gonna get judged,
That's
You better
entirely
figure out.
different.
You better figure out what's going on down there because somebody's going to be looking at it.
Very different. I don't intend to, when you're mass producing cars,
Yeah.
that's not your goal.
No, I want to see a large grouping of cars. There's a picture of Manassas there where there's, I think, upwards to 43 cars in the single picture. Okay, well, we'll lose a little bit of detail to get that grand effect on the track. But I don't blame anybody who goes for the detail, though. By God, if you have the time and the money to do it, do it.
Paul, did you have a question?
Is anybody I have a question. If you want to, if you know how to operate the electronic raising of the hand on Zoom or some common thing, how many of you own the Mantua cars? Because you're in HO scale. Okay, good, Bill. Good, Ron.
I can't find the icon.
Ron, I'm already looking at either a slightly different modification or just changing the damn doors to make it a B&O boxcar. And maybe the ladders on the side. I think there's some major differences on the ladder. And of course, the B&O boxcar is very short. It's a very low boxcar. Or the 1856 model that John White has in his book. Okay, well, good.
Roger, I wanted to ask you one question. Have you put couplers on those cars yet?
Negative. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. What are you going to use?
Right now, I'm probably going to use KDs because I kind of want to. I just kind of want to have fun and play.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably one of these days I'll want to set up a train with Lincoln pin. I have Lincoln pin couplers. Yeah. You know, just one. You know, but when I want to run things around, when I want to put the next locomotive on, when I want to change the car from, when I want to change the train from this to that and get a different combination, I just want to fool with KDs for right now. You know. Just me.
Oh, that's okay. I've gotten the Alexander couplers and I have mounted them on a couple of things, but I'm not operating, so it doesn't matter yet. I have a mix. You know, some cars have KDs, some have the Alexander. So
yeah.
Tom uses the Alexander couplers on his.
Yeah, right.
And they're a little bigger.
They're actually more O scale size. But if you get a truly HO scale Lincoln pin.
I was about to say that. I use them on my O scale cars because they are perfect O scale size.
They are. But because I use the San Juan models, the old Grant line, Lincoln pin couplers, and I'll admit they are harder to couple and uncouple than Tom's cars are.
Yeah, I had more of my share of fun trying to couple Tom's cars. I'm sitting there trying to balance that thing in there. My main concern was I wasn't going to plunge in one of his beautiful cars with the tool I had in my hand. So I guess I was more, that first show, I was more concerned about that than anything else. If I didn't couple the car, too bad, just as long as I didn't bust anything up while I was there. Yeah, are there any more questions, guys?
I just had a general question about the October meet, but if there's no other questions for.
No, ask away, Phil. That's what we're here for.
Just looking for a, kind of an update, making sure that it's going to go ahead because I'm probably going to book my travel here in the next week or two.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Tom and I have been working on it. It looks like we will be touring the B&O Railroad Station Museum in Ellicott City on Friday morning.
Right.
They normally don't open. They're about 15 to 18 minutes from the hotel.
Okay.
I'm lobbying with them to try to get them to open at 9 o'clock just for our group. Right now we have 10 people signed up. If you sign up and stay at the hotel, that will be 11. I'm not sure if there's anybody really locally that's going to be going, but as that stands right now is good. We're going to be operating on Bernie's layout. Okay. I'm not sure that's looks like it's going to be a Saturday activity.
All right.
We're still trying to decide on what the best option is going to be for banquet on Saturday night. We want everybody to be able to enjoy whatever their dinner is going to be. We would like to be in a situation where we can talk to each other. Not that we don't have any official business, but so we can talk to each other. If we have 10 people sign up, which it looks like we will at this point, the hotel will grant us their conference room. If not, we'll end up having to pay for it. Or like if there's last minute cancellations, that type of thing. But everything is a go as it stands right now.
All right.
And we're also talking about going to the B&O Museum. Ellicott City is a nice place. You can kind of, if we get there, or the reason we're going early in the morning is because there's limited on-street parking by the museum. And there's some neat little shops and nice restaurant there, and some like old candle shops, and they have a cutaway section of a period turntable there. They have a layout in what used to be the baggage station, and inside that, a group of volunteers has constructed an HO scale layout of the B&O. And again, I'm lobbying, trying to get them to run. They have, they have 080 Winings camels that they run on those periodically, because I'm trying to explain we're interested in the older engines rather than modern diesels. So,
right.
But there's a gentleman I've been talking to who would actually be giving us a talk, and I've been through them before, and they're very interesting, and the modeling's quite good on their display layout. The museum itself has period artifacts and different rooms and stuff. I believe they have the general and the Texas that I think it's the ones that E.P. Alexander built.
Okay.
So it's a neat place, and then there's the B&O Museum, which is another favorite of mine. So,
all right.
Didn't get a chance. You can also see the President Street Station, which is there. We did that. The last tour, I guess, was 2012. Was the last time we were there. And that was kind of neat, though, because that was when they were doing the Civil War. The war comes by rail, and that was a lot of fun. But I really like the B&O Museum. I cannot commit because I don't know when we have when we will be up there. If I'm up there during that period, I'll be just coming over from Alexandria because we'll be house sitting the kids.
Ah.
Because they're going off to Paris. That's after my son gets back from Mobile. So he and his wife are going off, and I think we're supposed to go puppy sit.
And we do have a few people that we've been in communication with about doing clinics, presentations to the group.
Okay.
Looks like Thursday evening, we're going to have kind of a, Tom's going to give us an overview of what's going on. And then we're also going to have kind of a show and tell. So anybody who's coming has a project they've been working on. It's weird because I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
I think they're talking with the muted.
Okay. Does that help, Phil?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Okay.
So
yeah. Any other questions? Comments? Suggestions? Other topics of interest?
Well, I would like to share something. The other day, I was gifted with this little item.
Ah.
Some of you probably know what this is.
Yep.
Or have seen these. This is Trailblazers, passenger cars of the, can't read whether it's 1850s or 1860s. This is a baggage car. I was over visiting a guy's layout and he dug around under the layout and pulled this out and said, here, you like that old time stuff right here. So if you haven't seen one of these things, they are, there it is, partially assembled with the doors and windows tastefully painted gray, and some hacking has been done on the steps. They're kind of crude. Well, the whole thing is kind of crude, but they want to be replacing those. And there's a roof for it. It's definitely a project. This car is, here's another similar one. This is a brass mail car, very, very similar to this Trailblazers plastic one. This is from a Takara car. The underframe is missing from it, and it's, well, the ends of the roof have been sort of recontoured, I think, from maybe hitting the floor or something at some point. So I got this one a long time ago at it was more of a junk store. It wasn't a train shop. And they thought it was a big deal. And I was able to convince them it wasn't. And then it was in pretty rough shape. And I was racking my brains how to figure that, what to do with that. I don't know if you can see how bent the roof is. And
I
then
would
one
take
day,
that off and replace it, John.
Well, one day I was cruising on eBay and I discovered one of these for sale where the underframe had been replaced with one from a Mantua plastic car, which was a pretty weird deal, I thought. And I was able to get that for not much money. So the underframe came off of mine and went on that one. So now I have a pretty good one and a spare body to do, I don't know what with. But anyhow, I thought this Trailblazers kit was kind of neat. And
well, if you replace the trucks and, you know, do something better with the couplers, they make a presentable model.
It doesn't, this one, it doesn't have trucks or couplers. And I don't know if it had, maybe this envelope has got handrails or something in it.
The handrails, yeah.
It does have decals. Nice little eagle and U.S. mail and Western and Atlantic, because don't they all? And so who knows?
The lack of trucks and couplers is no loss, let me tell you.
Yeah.
With theirs, the trucks and couplers were much more toy-like.
Yeah.
And that's saying something. So there's another project, but probably kind of far down on the list of projects I got to work on. So that's it. That's what I got.
Well, anyone else?
I guess I'd ask, is there any technique to, like the car ends they had there, the brass, is there a technique to re-roll it? I don't really, is it like a body shop? You just put Bondo on it or something?
Well,
is there something I mean, if you really wanted to spend the time, like heat it up or something and then put a wooden roller over it, I don't know.
What I was going to do, I've got some other of these cars that are in good shape. And I got a couple of blocks of some really hard wood, I don't know, hard maple or something. And I was gonna take this roof and set it down on the piece of wood and trace it. And then cut it with a coping saw type of thing, sand it, get the two halves to match this. And then I was going to put it in a vise with this and see if I could squeeze this back to shape using those two hardwood, male and female die, more or less. And I got as far as finding some kill dried wood or something really nice stuff to use this. And then I found the other one on eBay. So no real need to do anything with this.
In my experience, it's easier just to remove the roof there and replace it with plastic roof or wood roof.
Yeah, it was new. But how did they make it?
Well,
yeah, I guess you just need
two pieces of metal come down with a piece
and
of
you have a
metal
tool and you have a tool and there's no way we can we could never remake that tool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could do something like that. I would have to be careful when I unsoldered the roof that the whole car body didn't fall apart.
The only other comment I had was on a different subject, but Roger said that he painted the inside black so you wouldn't see the details. So, because it wasn't part of his modeling effort. I was on another web NMRA kind of thing, and they were talking about painting, and they had a different problem, and they were talking about painting the inside of a structure, and I think it was resin, and they were going to light it, and they didn't want it to show through. And one of the techniques they said was, someone said you should paint it gray. He says, well, the one that really works the best he found was to paint it black and then white over it, which I thought was interesting. They wanted white because that was the effect of the building, I suppose. But the black underneath it helps prevent the white from, I guess, like blackout tape, from the light from the box glowing. I thought that was curious, black and then white.
I had with the City Point engine house I built, I got really thin plywood, which is prototypical thickness. However, light will shine through it if you put a light in there. Yeah. Which kind of ruins everything. So.
Well, you can't have everything, but I thought that was interesting that black and then white, because they wanted it to be white, but the black was the goal of eliminating the light, as opposed to gray. You would think gray should be enough, but it wasn't, according to this this presenter.
Were they doing something with the storefront that had big windows or something?
I think it was like a warehouse. I think it was like a warehouse. So you would think there would be big windows to let a lot of light. Not a like a company, not a whale house, not a warehouse, but like a company. We have big windows for like a shop of some kind. So you would have a lot of natural light coming in.
I would probably go with the black too, because
yeah,
anytime you're putting light into a structure, I would go. You want the walls to be
melt black.
Yeah, you don't want to see the light coming through the side walls.
Yeah. So, but the point was black and then white over it. That was what was a surprise to me, because their objective was white. And someone said, why don't you just do gray, just do one coat? But that didn't have the same effect as putting black and white. I never tried it, but interesting. I know, just something I wouldn't have thought of to pass on.
I would have thought opaque, no matter what color of opaque, as long as it was, a thick enough coat. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. But I would think that you could, if you had it painted white, that would also just block the light. But
yeah, when you paint, I don't know. He seemed to know. He's a master NMRA master model railroader, so maybe he knows what he's talking about. But the other thing he said was that whenever he had a presentation and there was something he wanted you to know, he put a star next to it. In fact, I think I can paste the link to it here in our group too, because I don't see why not. It's just YouTube. But I thought that was a good technique. He told at the beginning, and whenever you see a star, just pay a little extra attention to that. And I thought that was a good technique, because you'd have 5 or 6 things on a slide, and one of them would always have a star in it. The other thing he said was it talked about terminology, and when you paint something and inevitably you miss a spot because it's shielded by something else or whatever, so you have to set up again and do it. That's called a holiday. At least that's what he called it in the trade. I thought that was an interesting term.
A holiday?
A holiday. I don't know if you ever heard that I never heard that term before, but I'm not in the trade, but I thought that was interesting. Inevitably, if you paint something, you'll miss a spot, either because you can't, because it's something else is blocking it, or the angle or whatever, or just because of lighting.
Oh, okay.
And it's something like that. That's called a holiday. So actually he had a good, I should probably see if I can post this here, because he had a lot of good little things, like when you're setting up for painting, triangulate, have 3 light sources. That'll minimize your chance of getting something wrong because of a shadow or whatever. So some of them are kind of common sense, but lots of little tricks like that. So.
Interesting. So
one more
thing. A good summer.
Yeah, one more thing, guys. If anybody is attempting to do this project, please drop me a line. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear, above all, the improvements to the project that you'll probably bring to it. So, let me know.
When I looked at one of those a few years ago, the hardest problem I had was recreating what you said too, with the putting the trucks. So you have that, I don't know what you call it, a bushing or something that you happen to find from your father. That's gold, because that was a problem I always had, is how to mechanically, make it so that it wouldn't wobble. And also the trick that you did making the shim in order to cut it down was also pretty clever. So it's not sitting too high.
That's why we talk to each other, man, because DC came up with that. So,
well, you can always 3D print one now too. Measure the hole and go get one printed.
It's probably good.
Yeah, it's true.
Or Have you looked, Roger? I haven't, but have you looked into seeing if evergreen styrene makes a tubing of that diameter for the larger hole?
No.
And you glue one in from the top and one in from the bottom? And
Yeah.
screw up through?
No, I haven't. And that's
okay.
something, and that is definitely something to look into. And frankly, it's probably the better option to look into. Yeah, that deserves more research. Or if I can find what the hell I found on my uncle's thing, and they're going to run out. So I'm going to have to find out something sooner or later. So I got a few more cars to go.
How many cars have you built so far?
10.
10. How many are in the works?
About 50,
50?
at least. 50 at least. Yeah, and I want the radial roof because you can find a peak roof at about one out of every 99 pictures, it seems like. So definitely want the radial roof. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to depart. I got to go to work tomorrow morning. I do apologize. I would love to stay as I always do. But I'm going to have to say good night. Thank you, DC, for running it for us tonight.
Thank you, Roger, for the presentation.
Not a problem, gentlemen. You have a good evening now.
Okay. If anybody else has any questions, fine. If not, we'll see each other soon, I hope.
Okay. We'll see you.
Okay. Take care.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good presentation. Thanks.